The other way to calculate interest is the case of compound interest. Now the terms remain the same. So P principal is the money that I kept initially, R is the rate of interest which is usually per annum, out of that T is the time period. However, the formula changes now, and if you remember from your school days, the formula for compound interest was P1 plus R by 100 raised to T, and importantly, this formula gives us the amount this time. So this formula gives us the amount and not the compound interest. So in fact, if I want to find the compound interest, I would have to do amount minus the principal. So unlike simple interest, where we have driven in the fact that focus on the interest, because the formula PRT by 100 is the interest part, right? And we do make errors where we unknowingly or through a silly error we take the amount as the interest, right? Whereas here the formula, if you are using P into 1 plus R by 100 raised to T, you need to understand the left hand side is the amount value, right? So I hope. So in case of compound interest, my focus will shift to the amount. What is the final money that we have? However, from your experience, you would have learned that this formula troubles quite a bit. We have had a lot of students requesting us videos on compound interest, and the prime reason is because they are fed up of using this formula. Let me allay your fears. First, you are not going to use this formula raised to 4, raised to 5, raised to 6. You do not have such questions, right? So that is an unfounded fear. So I would not even worry about a compound interest question where the time period is 5 years, 6 years or so on. You cannot do that without a calculator or so on, right? So that is not. The idea is again the concept. So let's start by learning what is this formula about? Where does it come from? How can I do an alternate way if I don't want to use this? Let's understand compound interest the same way as we did in simple interest. So we keep a deposit of 1000 rupees in bank, which is going to be my initial principal, and the agreed rate is 10%, but this time it is compound interest per annum. So in the first year, my principal is 1000, nothing to discuss that. 10% of what? Of the principal, that is going to be 100 rupees. So the amount due to me is the initial money that I keep, which is mine itself, plus the 100 rupees that I earn till the end of the year. 1100 is going to be my amount due at the end of the year. So there's nothing different as compared to simple interest for the first year. In the second year, in the case of simple interest, it was 1000 years, but the meaning of compounding is update the principal. Update the principal, and there is, other than the rate, we also agree to another term, compounded annually. Compounded annually. Annual, you understand, in a year. Compounded means update the principal. So when do I update the principal? At the end of the year, right? So at the end of the year, the next year it starts. What is the money that is my money, which is due to me, kept in the bank? 1100. 1000 was at the start. Now I have earned 100 rupees. That earning is complete. That 100 belongs to me, but it is kept in the bank. So what is the money sort of that I have lent to the bank? 1100, and that is updated. So this time in the second year, I am going to get 10%, but 10% of the updated principal, that is 1100, which is going to be 110 rupees, right? So I already had 1100 at the end of the previous year due to me. I again earn 110 in this particular year. So 1210 is due to me at the end of the second year, right? You could even do cumulatively 1000 plus 100 plus 1100. So at the third year, just to reinforce and repeat it, the principal will again be compounded. That is going to be updated to what is the money that is owed to me, 1210, right? So I'll be getting 10%, but this time of 1210, that is 121. Previous, at the start of the year, due to me 1210. What is the fresh interest that I've earned? 121. So if I add it up, I get 1331, and so on it would continue. We would look at this table once again, but let us just look at it in formula ways. So what is the formula way? Formula tells me amount is principal into 1 plus R by 100 raised to T. So principal was 1000. R is 10%. So 10 by 100 is 0.1. Now we'll use decimal raised to 1, which is going to be 1100. Correct as this, right? In the second year, if I use the formula, this is going to be 1.1 raised to 2. And we know 11 square is 121. So 1.21 into 1000, 1210, which is 6. Why I'm doing this formula businesses, I find a few students not knowing 1.11 cube. It's a pretty wrong part on your preparation, right? You should know till 12 cube. So 11 cube is nothing but at least use this example because these values are going to see over and over again. 1000, 1100, 1210, 1331, right? So 11 cube is nothing but 1331. That is 1.331 into 1000, 1331, right? So the formula works, right? But we need an alternate to the formula. So we are going to learn another visual way rather than the tabular way. Same example looked on a timeline is, I start with 1000 rupees as my principal. In the first year, this is your first year, it's simply an increase of 10%. 10% of 1000. And an increase of 10% simply means multiplied by 1 plus 10 by 100. 1 for the original value, 10% is 10 by 100. That is, we are multiplying it by 1.1. So when I multiply it by 1.1, I get 1100. And in the second year, what is the interest that I get? Again, I get a 10%. The only difference is, this is a 10% not of 1000, but it is a 10% of 1100, right? So 10% of 1100 means any 10% increase means multiply by 1.1. So 11 into 11, 121 with the 0 out over that, taking care of the zeros and the decimal out of that, right? The third year, I am again getting a 10% and 10% of the new value. So what is this screen teaching us? This screen is just teaching us that in the case of simple interest, all the 10% were of the 1000. So it was R% of P, R% of P, R% of P. Here what is happening? There's a 10% increase, the new 10% is of the new value. The next 10% is of the yet new value, and this thing you would have understood from percentage chapter is nothing but a case of successive percentage changes, right? And this is what we are going to use rather than the formula, the concept of successive percentage changes. But let's just first get the formula rather than using these values. In general terms, I start with the principal P, which is an R% increase, and R% increase is equivalent to multiplying by 1 plus R by 100. So, the amount after 1 year is P into 1 plus R by 100. This is after 1 year. Now, in the second year, I again get an R% of this value. So, let's say this value was Q. Any R% increase means multiply the base with 1 plus R by 100. And this itself has a term 1 plus R by 100 into 1 plus R by 100 is going to nothing but 1 plus R by 100 square, right? And the process will continue. So if you look at it, 1 plus R by 100 is just a multiplying factor. We have a general case of there is a base, we multiplied by a multiplying factor related to a percentage change. If there is another percentage change, we multiplied with the second factor and so on. So the same way, in this case, I have my base as the principal, multiplying factor is 1 plus R by 100. Again, it's same R% itself, so 1 plus R by 100 and so on you multiply. So that would be raised to T for T years. Hope this is how you understand how the formula has come. Once you know how the formula has come, you can use other techniques to reduce your work, right? So let's see one of those techniques.